So, good afternoon. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week and good start to, well, it's about to be a start to a new week. Um, and yeah, I feel like January's going by fast, but um, I came across a, wasn't even, well, it was from a post, but it was someone's comment. I think the post was like talking about lessons that you learn or that you teach or something. And this lady, she commented saying that learn to take correction without offense. And that was a lesson that she said she's teaching or taught her 15-year-old. And it stood out to me because I feel like it took me a long time to learn, to understand this lesson. Um, I think that just being like a ego driven person and like wanting to always be right. And I struggled with that. I still kind of do. But I think that um I've experienced a lot of experiences and like interactions and stuff like that too, especially in my adult life that has humbled me and put me in a space to understand this lesson that again, like it says, learning how to take correction without offense. Because I think a lot of the times it not only just came from like an ego thing, but I think it was also when you are a independent person and you're used to having to do things on your own and like or you just kind of maybe you were raised that way. And I know for me it was like a lot of I was raised that way and also like being an older sibling, you are just naturally responsible for things and um used to having to not having to but kind of yeah having to do things um because you are the oldest and like being relied upon to be responsible and like stable and stuff like that. So um I think that that can play a role too. And then also just like most people don't want to be wrong, right? We always want to be right. So um I think that being able to learn to take correction without being offended it's not only just important, but it can help you in your growth because what I learned from my personal experiences, I can't speak for other people, but there are times when I was being corrected and not just like it will be whether it be from family, it could be from friends or just work, or just people I would come across or like certain situations and stuff. And I would get offended. And I think that my offense would delay me understanding the lesson and being able to correct myself in that situation because I would become so consumed on the offense, the fact that why are you like who you think you are telling me this or why are you telling me this or um you know feeling like I rather learn by myself or sometimes especially I feel like as a teenager and just a younger adult feeling like, well, you know, your life is not the same as mine or what it's not the same thing. I think that and that's just like a natural thing as we grow up. Like we tend to sometimes feel like what we are going through is only something that we have ever gone through, right? Versus like um things that we do go through as humans, like the people before us or our elders, they've been through the same thing. If maybe not the exact same thing, but similar situations. And I think that sometimes if we took the time to really understand that and just take the correction, rather than being offended, then we could probably learn the lesson faster and our lives may have gone differently. But I also think that things happen the way they're supposed to. So, sometimes it's like a full circle thing where like you didn't understand it then, but now you understand it as you're older, right? And I think that also when you do understand it and you're no longer offended by the correction, then you should be able to share that with the next person and the next generation. Um, That's important too, because I think that sometimes, especially within like the black and brown community, there is somewhat of like gatekeeping um between elders and younger generations. I think that sometimes because, just from history, I think alone, like we've always kind of been this um group that like kind of is somewhat of a fend for yourself kind of thing, or like because I didn't have this then you should be able to figure it out too. And I think that that's helpful to an extent, but I also think that it's important that we start like practicing sharing the knowledge sooner than later. Not you shouldn't have to we don't have to let our younger people or younger generations experience something first before they have to learn it, right? Sometimes it is situations where you can just teach them earlier so that they don't have to go through it. And obviously at the end of the day, sometimes people just gonna have to go through everybody has certain lessons that they have to go through. Whether you say it 7 million times to this person, if that's their purpose, like they're part of their life, that they're gonna have their journey, that they're gonna have to experience a tough situation, even though ones that you try to avoid for them, then let them. But I think my point is like learning to correct them before or give them the knowledge before they have to be in a space where they have to learn it, right? Because I think that's just natural. Like all of us would say that, excuse me, no matter what age we are, like if someone had told us beforehand, like this is what you need to do, um, in order to avoid this, because I think that can be also the missing piece sometimes, is like there's a difference between telling someone you shouldn't do this and then that's it versus like you shouldn't do this because it can lead to A, B, and C. I know for me, that would be helpful. And I think that's for most people. I think that, and again, like it's just like the ways of the world, really, because I think that sometimes that just happens where your elders will tell you like don't do this, but then there's always that going to be that curiosity aspect of like, okay, well, why? You know what I mean? Or like, oh, if you're not telling me why, then I'm still going to do it. I'm gonna try it anyway. See how like why you're telling me no versus like you give them the information of why, then you could potentially avoid that for them. But on the flip side, it's also again a part of growth as a person to be able to take correction without being offended. And we have to learn, at least something that I've learned now, is like you should be appreciative of the correction because not everyone has people in their lives to correct them, right? Some people will, the flip side of that is like, I'd rather have a person that will correct me versus a person that will sit and watch me fall and or sit and watch me, destroy myself and um end up being a I told you so type of person or like that's not my problem. Those are dangerous people too. So um again, just learning how to be appreciative when someone is taking their time to correct you or give you advice or give you information or tell you like, hey, that's not the right path or I don't think that's the right thing that you should do. Like again, we all get into that space. Like I think of like examples like, I feel like most of our parents told us like don't drink and drive or like don't smoke or do drugs or like having premarital sex or just having sex just as a not really being selective, I guess, in that sense, or like I know for me a lot of it was like focus on school, don't worry about dating and boys and all that stuff like that stuff will come. And back then I would be like, well, in my head I'm like, I mean, yeah, it'll come, but I want to do both. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to wait. But I think that now, like as I'm older, like if I had maybe taken that advice a little bit more serious, then I could have avoided some heartbreaks and potentially like gone a different path. But I also know that if I didn't experience those heartbreaks and I didn't experience the, you know, situations or like just some downfalls and like ups and downs or whatever, or however things went in that department, then I wouldn't be having the knowledge that I have too, also in that area. And even just creating the podcast, or like, like, I'm not saying that I created the podcast because of a relationship, but like I've stated before, like in the way beginning of the podcast, like the a relationship that I had experienced, really, it was like two relationships that I had experienced that really shifted things in my life. Um, those experiences upon like other things pushed me into a space where I was able to have a spiritual awakening, or begin my spiritual awakening. So I think that if I hadn't gone that route, then I might not have been doing the podcast, stuff like that. So that's where I say like everything happens the way it's supposed to, and happens for a reason. But at the same time, um that was some great advice too. Like, I can understand now as I'm older, like how, you know, is important. Like, it is important to focus on school. But I feel like in the sense of not just school, but more so like focus on you, focus on your growth, and um maybe just be more in tune with yourself and your higher self and God, and asking like which way should I go, and like how do I which what do you want me to do, really thing, like kind of like, and what's my purpose, and allowing things to just come to you and happen for you. Um so yeah, that's just one example. But another way I feel like is just like, when it says learning to take correction without offense, is just the way we live our lives. I think that another example for me is like work. Like, I feel like I'm still learning that, but um that's definitely something that I have to work on, is like learning to take offense at work, or taking learning to take correction at work, because I am such a diligent, efficient, and like hardworking person when I do work, no matter what the job is. Um, I am easily, I can be easily offended when someone tries to tell me, "Oh, you need to do this," or like da da da, or like they try to add on stuff, or just, I think, shaking things up a little bit, in the sense for me, like, because usually when I have a job, I create like a routine for myself, in the sense of I learn the job and the training, but I do things in a way that works for me. That's just kind of how I am. And I think that because of that, when someone tries to tell me, "Oh, you should do this way," or "Can you do it this way," or something, I get offended or irritated, because I'm like, "Well, that doesn't fit the way that I want to do it." And so, um I don't know if that's necessarily perfection, or just like me being stubborn of like, no, I want to do it my way because it works for me, versus like, but this is the way that needs to be done. So for me, I'm definitely learning how to take correction at work, versus and not being offended, and taking it as something to be appreciative of, because it could easily go the other way of just like, well, all right, they just let you go, right? So yeah, I think that's another example of just learning how to take correction without offense, and learning that looking at it as like, this is a way that's going to help me become even better at this job, so that I can move up the ladder, and like um you know get to where I want to be. Um and I feel like even learning how to take correction from the universe, from God, right? Because I think that that comes in ways of things, in situations or ways that we don't necessarily enjoy, like job loss, or uh, just not having, like, losing money, or uh, losing friendships, relationships, stuff like that. Things going uh, sour, I suppose, or going left versus going right. We have to learn to take that as a correction, not necessarily as something to be offended by, and it's something to be thankful for. I said that, I feel like I've said that before, just like learning to be thankful when things don't go your way, because that's, you're being protected. And so that's the time to be like, all right, just go with the flow and go with it. Like you're only gonna have so much control. So um learning to take that correction and be thankful for it is imperative to your growth as a person, and can really help you along the way. And so trying to think of anything else, but um I think that also, like I said, not only learning how to take correction, but give it um, to other people. And if they don't receive it, then they don't receive it. But at least if you tried and shared, right? Because I feel like that's something that people have to work on also is not being stingy, so to speak, with their knowledge and being willing to share what they know, even if someone doesn't take the advice or the information and do something with it, or do something with it that you feel that they should do. Um, being able to understand that like that's a form of I don't know if it's a form of correction, but it's something to not be offended with either, right? Because I feel like sometimes we as humans do that too. We'll give someone advice or tell them like, "Hey, this is what you should do," and then when they don't do it, we get offended. But that's the point, is like your role was only supposed to give them the information or share with them what you think. Um it's not about you. So you can't get offended when someone doesn't take your advice or do things the way that you feel that they should do. You have to respect that at the end of the day people have their own path, and they're going to do things their own way too. And so only the thing that you can take from that is that like, hey, I did my due diligence of sharing my idea or my information or my advice, and like eventually maybe it'll be used, or it did something for this person, right? It had some type of a positive um influence. So yeah, I think, sorry, I'm still stuffy. I'm still kind of sick for some reason. But yeah, I think that that's a very important lesson, and um something that I have taken into 2024 with myself. And I feel like I took it into 20, I learned it a lot in 2023, and taking it into 2024 is like learning to take correction without offense. And I'm really glad that that lady shared that, because that was something to remember too. Like, just again, I feel like hopefully, even just hearing it from me, like you guys will think about that too. Like, learning how to take correction in our lives without being offended, but instead, being gracious for it, and being glad that someone has taken the time to correct you, because that correction can help you um, reroute in a sense to where it is you're supposed to be, and potentially avoid wasting your time somewhere or with something or someone or whatever, right? Um, kind of, I think about like jobs and job rejection. Like when you're rejected from a job that maybe you really, really wanted that job and you didn't get the job, you're supposed to rejoice in that and be thankful in that too. Not only because that means it makes you one step closer to the job that you're supposed to be, but you also avoided wasting your time, or maybe not say wasted your time, but you avoided um spending your time somewhere that would just delay you from getting to where you be. Also, you can think of it also as like you didn't even have to go that route, because learned that you already learned the lesson that you potentially would have learned there. Let me give you an example because that makes sense. Myself, my last job, where I ended up eventually getting like they ended the job, so I lost the job. Or not really lost the job, but the position just ended, so I ended up getting like laid off technically. Um, so I didn't get fired. Um, I just got like my position was ended. But anyways, losing that job, right? But at the time, when I was applying for that job, I really, really wanted that job. But I was really wanting it just because I wanted it for the money and the idea I thought of getting out of the situation that I was currently in. I didn't really I thought the job would be interesting, but I really didn't think about all the other particulars of the job. It was more so like this is a way out of my situation. And so, um, and I remember like praying on it and being like, hey, if this is the role for me, then I want to go there. And I definitely of like didn't necessarily take into account some red flags that um occurred like even during the interview process of that role or like just the beginning of the role. Because again, I was thinking of it from the finance part and just like getting out of my current situation. And so I think that going in that route of eventually taking that job, and I learned, like I said, I learned a lot within that 1 year of that job. And um not just like job specific things, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about other people and just was exposed to a lot of different things within a year. And so I say that to say like I I myself needed probably to go that route. Even though it ended up it was never necessarily the right route for me. Like I wasn't supposed to be there, clearly, right? Otherwise I'd still be working there. Whether it was because I was only supposed to be there for a short stint of time to learn the lessons that I learned, or if it was a situation where, um, yeah, no, I would say that. Sorry. My point is like, even though that wasn't the place that I was supposed to be long term, I needed to go there to learn the lessons that I needed to learn. But because I had been praying about the job and like begging for it to God, like saying like I really need this job and like this will help me, because at that time I was in grad school trying to pay out of pocket and I just needed a little bit more money to be able to continue doing so. So that job was kind of like a saving grace for me in my eyes from an ego standpoint. But I didn't take into account all the other stuff of how it did eventually become somewhat of a tough situation too for me. Um, but I feel that I was allowed spiritually to go there because I needed to learn the lessons that I learned from that environment versus if I had received a rejection from that job, in my eyes, that would have meant that I didn't need to go there because I would have already had learned those lessons. I hope that's making sense. Right? So I feel like that's kind of um what kind of stemming from this thing of like I needed to go there to receive the correction that I learned from that job versus like if I had been rejected from that job, then that meant that I didn't need to receive the correction from that job because I had already learned it, but also that would have been a space for me not to be offended. Whereas like now in my position when I have been like when I was applying for jobs for the past like 2023 like applying for jobs after I lost my job and I was receiving rejections um by then I had already learned that lesson of like the rejection is not something to be offended by, it's something to be thankful for because that means a step closer. And so like from then on, even today, like this year, whatever, moving forward, I always understand that any form of rejection is something to be um, happy for because it's a form of correction. It's guiding me somewhere else that I need to be. So, um, yeah, I hope that makes sense. Like, just understanding that, like, sometimes we go in certain directions not because it's we did something wrong, but because God already knows that He already knows what you're gonna do anyways, like today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, whatever, right? But we can't see that far. We're human. We can only see certain so far. And so I believe that God allows you to go through things because it's gonna teach you things that He wants you to learn anyway, whether it be about yourself or just in general, like how just how we as humans we learn certain things in certain situations, and then we're able to apply it to things in the future. So I think that again, just learning not to take correction as an offense is important. So I feel like that's all I'm gonna say about it because I can go on and on because I have experienced that so much in life and I feel like I'm still gonna experience that. Um, and I've learned, like I said, to not take offense. Whereas like even you could hear back last year my episodes in the beginning when I was talking about losing my job, how I was offended. I was offended. Like, how you gonna let me go? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm the one of the best workers you guys have here, right? But like and that was like from an ego standpoint, but it was also like a I'm now I gotta figure this out. Like, you know what I mean? Like I gotta do all this, I gotta do all that. But um now I can look back and be like, like I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you all let me go because I needed to do the things that I needed to do last year and this year. And I needed to learn the things that I needed to learn. And so I'm thankful that I'm not there. I'm thankful that I'm where I'm at today. I've been it's only January 21st. It's only been 21 days into 2024 and I'm already like I said this before too. I think my like New Year's Eve episode or like before around that time I said like 2023 was a year for me. Like I got hit with the lessons, but I knew that I said on the other side, 2024 is going to be completely different. It's going to be the flip side of what I had to go through. And so far it has definitely been that way. Especially career-wise because I'm moving and grooving like I'm about to start another job. So, um and excuse me, we're very grateful for that. But I also know like what's the deal with that? Like that's gonna be a situation that's not gonna be it's another stepping stone. So and it's being able to be grateful for the stepping stones too. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Again, the message is learn to take correction without offense. Um and especially if you're a younger person listening, like please take my advice. Like learn to take correction without offense. Don't be offended when your parents try to tell you something. Don't get an attitude, don't get mad about it. Like be grateful. Be grateful that you have parents that will tell you that, correct you, but whether it be your parents, your teachers too, because me working in the school, like dealing with those kids, like you see how like kids they don't really be grateful for that. They don't want you telling them what to do. But they need it. We all need it, especially as you're growing as a person, like until you're like really even as an adult you need it too, but especially when you're younger, like you don't have enough life experience to know everything. So you have to take and be grateful when adults try to give you some correction and guidance. So, I hope that was helpful. And again, like I said, the lesson is learn to take correction without offense. So, um, thank you for listening. I hope it wasn't rambling, but I just wanted to share that information. And hopefully everyone is have a great rest of your Sunday. And so, as always, I'm your host Chanel, and this is Black Hippie Lounge podcast. As always, meditate, manifest, invest in you, and take care.